Yes, we have the VRS in the workshop, and today should be a good video because I can hopefully rectify a lot of the issues that we found in the first video. Click in the top right hand corner if you haven't already seen that video, and yeah, we'll have a quick overview. So I found, apart from the obvious, so we have some damage on the bodywork, which isn't too major, like cracked bumper there, the sill and the door, a little bit on the front. But the main issues that I found was actually on a road test, and I found that the gearbox is knackered. Gears 3 and 4, they've just gone completely worn out and just wouldn't engage. So I had to go from 2nd to 5th, and also we have a DPF light on as well. So let's get it onto the ramp, and I'm actually going to quickly concentrate on this corner here because my headlight is loose and broken, and I know you can get repair kits for the tabs on these. So, and I'd rather do that because those headlights are about 400-ish quid bare, and that's without the control units. But then again, my DRL doesn't work. So we're gonna have a look at this bumper corner here to see if there's any other damage, because I know there's some under trays hanging down as well. And also, when I left it running to try and do the DPF regen last time, I noticed a patch of oil on the floor. So we may also have an oil leak. So we're gonna get up in the air, and yeah, we're gonna have a good look around it and have a look what lurks beneath. So before we dive in onto the VRS and start taking the gearbox out, let's just gonna have a quick look around the rest of the car to make sure we have a fairly solid base to start. Now, I have actually just gone around all the brakes and suspension, and everything in that department looks pretty good. All the brakes are fairly actually new. They're only about 15–20% worn. Rear suspension, everything on the rear end, to be fair, looks pretty good for a car that's done 131,000 miles. Unfortunately, I did notice it's got AdBlue, which is a bit annoying. And you can see AdBlue injector there. But there we go, I suppose that's the way things are going. On the front end is a bit more going on. So first thing I've noticed is that the people just really couldn't drive. I mean, you've got chunks, gouges out of tyres. In fact, all of them have got gouges out of them. That's at least one place. We've got an offside outer CV boot gone. You can see the inner rubber's kind of like been pinched off and the clip's loose, so that will need replacing, and you can start seeing the grease been spat everywhere all over the brake lines. We have the under tray missing. We have an oil leak, a little bit coming from the sump bung, and also we've got a more obvious dripping here, which you can see is on the floor as well. It looks like it's coming out of the bell housing, so luckily we're taking the gearbox out so we can have a good look. It might be sump. I'd rather it be sump. It could be rear main seal, but we shall have a look. Yeah, under tray missing. I don't know if I just mentioned that. Evidence of a front splitter, which has been either removed or ripped off, and I can't see. I know a lot of you guys were saying that the front bumper's just been put on to hide other damage, to make it basically look doctored up, but having a look in here, I can't see anything obvious. Obviously, we'll take off the front bumper and have a good look just to see if there is any damage, but I can't see anything as yet. So the gearbox is now what we're going to do. Luckily, the new one has just arrived, so I can now start taking this out. It shouldn't be too bad to do. I used to take out the the gearboxes out of Mark 5, Mark 6 Golfs, and they were actually really easy once you got used to them. So I'm hoping this is the same. It looks fairly similar. So yeah, we're just going to start whipping that out and also have a look at that oil leak once it's out. More wheels that were ridiculously tight, and if you remember the BMW wheel, that was that tight that it just completely rounded the nut. And that is where actually today's sponsor will come in handy. Now, I am working with the brand SATA, who are a great tool supplier and other equipment. Now, in today's video, I want to show you the 23-piece bolt biter kit. Now, what we've got here is a 3/8 ratchet, a 3/8 extension bar, and a quarter drive adapter, along with 20 sockets, and they are both metric and SAE. Now, this is a biter set. Now, the idea of the biter set is exactly that. It bites into bolts that may be rounded or even rusted. And to be fair, I could have done with this last week with the BMW wheel nut. That took me about half an hour to undo. It fits on nice and snug, and that would have got it off. Quick demonstration look. I'll put the socket in. So now, see, that now won't come back out. Our bolt biter here, look, it's also got a wobbly head as well. If
bolts are a little bit difficult to get to. We'll stick it on. And there we go, look.
So if you're interested in the bolt biter set or any other tools that SATA might do, I'll put a link to their website in my description and also a link to their Instagram as well, so go follow them on Instagram. And a massive thanks to SATA for sponsoring today's video. Now I'm just going to talk you through what I did to remove the gearbox, and here I'm starting with the drive shaft, removing the 6 bolts from each inner drive shaft, and as you can see there is one of them as an example. Once you remove those, there's an outer bolt which is a 24mm socket you need to remove from each wheel as well, and then there's 3 wishbone bolts, and then once you've undone them you can pull the wishbone down and push the wheel out like that, and then you should be able to pull your drive shaft out and nicely feed it through past the anti-roll bar. There's also a lower dog band mount as well, which is bolted to the gearbox and the subframe. Now we're going to move over to the near side wheel arch. I'm actually removing the wheel arch as a whole because I need to replace the wing anyway, but usually this is a 2-piece, but on this car it is a 1-piece, so recommended easier to remove the whole lot. And there's just a short time lapse of me removing the airbox at the top and the battery with the battery tray, which I couldn't really show you much of. It's quite simple anyway. And there's also 2 bolts at the top of the gearbox to undo, and then you've got your starter motor bolt here, and that's just an 18mm socket. There's one at the top, one at the bottom. You need to remove both of those, and then you can pull the starter motor out the way, and you can just, once you've undone the electrical connections, you can just swing it and like tuck it into the front bumper, which is what I did here. There's an 18mm bolt at the back of the gearbox near the flange. You want to leave this in. That is the last bolt to remove. Here I'm just removing the clutch fluid, and you want to keep that as high as possible to stop it from leaking. And here you've got your gearbox bracket as well. There's 6 bolts, 3 bolts for the bracket to the gearbox, 3 bolts for the actual mount. You want to remove that bracket, and then there's a few more bolts at the bottom of the gearbox holding it to the engine. Once you've done that, you need to support the engine with a brace or a trolley jack, which is what I've done, and then you can pull the gearbox out like that. Right, so we have the gearbox out, and yeah, I have my engine support tool here, which is literally just a jack and a metal rod. Ideally, you'd have an engine brace going across the top, but I actually don't have one, so I just use that. It works the same, just the bar in the way instead of on the top. But I have also found the source of my oil leak, and it is the rear main seal. So you can see, look, puddle of oil in there. There's also, you can see just oil actually dripping down. If you look in, you probably won't be able to see it, but in those holes you can just see oil leaking down the back as well. It looks like someone has fitted this not long ago as well, because it's just really awful silicone. So that will need to be replaced. Now I'm just going to buy a new one. Unfortunately it is 160 quid. Because you get this whole flange and sealing ring, it comes as one, you can't just buy it separately. So yeah, 160 quid. Again, there are some on eBay for like 30 quid, but secondhand. But they're just so fragile, these seals, that it's just not something I'm prepared to gamble on having to take the gearbox back out. So I'm just going to bang a new one on it, 160 quid. But the good news is that will have solved our oil leak. I also removed the clutch and flywheel to get access to it. It's had a new clutch in relatively recent, and I assume they probably tried to fix that oil leaking at the same time. The flywheel's there. I'm not going to replace obviously either of these because that's relatively new, and the flywheel actually works absolutely fine. Now it's meant to be a bit loose in the middle, and then there's a rubber bump stops each side, which stop it from rattling and take up some of the engine vibration. Now on this it's working absolutely fine. Yes, there's a bit of heat scoring, but what flywheel doesn't have heat scoring, let's be honest, and it feels nice and smooth. I can't feel any high low spots or anything like that, so I'm just going to keep it, especially because I just saw the price of a new one, and it's, yeah, for a new clutch and flywheel it's about 700 quid, so there's nothing wrong with those, so they're going to go back in. And the other bit of advice I would have is when removing the gearbox, just remove this flange as well, because it's only one long bolt, 6mm bolt, and it just makes it a lot easier trying to get the gearbox out, because that flange gets just caught behind, well, it's not in there now, but it gets caught behind the flywheel here, and it's just a bit of a bugger. So yeah, you can take that out, but just be mindful when you do, your gearbox may leak oil. This one didn't, because I don't believe it's got much in it, but it can. The annoying thing is I'm pretty stuck now because, yeah, I can't really do much with the car in its current state. I did have to pay for next day delivery for that part, which was an extra tenner. So I'm going to pop down to Audi first thing in the morning and pick that up. So hopefully we can continue on and get that gearbox fitted, because like it is now, I can't even adjust the door, whatever, take the front bumper off, because it's kind of stuck where it is, which is very annoying. So I've just popped down to my local dealer and bought a new seal, and it comes with this whole plate as well. So what we're going to do to replace this, I've actually already just drained the oil from the sump, because removing this, the oil may be above here. So if it is, it will start leaking out of there, which is not ideal. So I've drained all the oil, and now he's going to undo all these bolts here and just pull the unit off. And yeah, we'll get the new one out. Box here. And here is our new crank seal, and I do believe, is that a fitting? That might be a little fitting template, that, to make sure it goes on without pinching the seal. I'm not sure. So I've just cleaned up all the silicone from around here, and on reflection, looking at the instructions for installing the rear sealing flange, there shouldn't be any sealant there at all. The new flange actually comes preset with a gasket, so I'm guessing that the previous person that fitted this didn't use the correct tool to do it, put silicone on it, which is incorrect, and then just obviously completely messed up the installation, because I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but on the gasket, or on the sealing flange, there's just silicone all over it, which is obviously going to create holes in it and therefore leak oil. So the indication is it's just been fitted completely wrong. Now, there is a very specific tool needed, a quite complicated tool needed to fit the sealing flange on, which I don't have. It is a £500 tool, so I've just asked around to see if I can actually borrow one for an hour. So I'm waiting to hear back. So what I'm going to try and do now is just pause working on this and try and do something else, like take the front bumper off and stuff. So I'm going to try and actually support the engine now to the top there somewhere, just to keep it where it is, because obviously I can't do much with it like this. So I've just managed to wedge 2 bits of wood in there, and that's holding the engine up nicely. So now I'm just going to bring it down, probably going to whip off the front bumper. So with the front bumper off, I've just had a good look around, and to be fair, I can't actually see any damage. Yeah, a bit of foam is damaged here, but that's the only thing I can really find. Headlight lugs are all broken off, and this headlight now is stopped working completely. I mean, I've just plugged the jump leads in, so the battery's on. That headlight and DRL work. This one did work. It was on in the engine bay, but now it's completely stopped working. DRL doesn't work, and there's a lot of dirt in the lens as well. I mean, there's dirt on the lens, but also inside the projector as well. It's absolutely filthy. So that headlight is unserviceable. So I have actually just bought a new one, and I've managed to find one for 180 quid that's just got one lug broken at the top. Now, you can actually get kits for these, which I've just bought, which actually rectify the lugs breaking. So if you can see here, just get the headlight on. So if you can see here that the lug has broken off here, the kit actually has a bracket, and you see these 2 holes here. The bracket will then screw into the headlight and produce another bracket. So this is the same with all of them. Another lug here, look, you can see the 2 screw holes here. So you can actually repair the brackets using a kit. So I hopefully, fingers crossed, have got lucky and managed to buy a very cheap headlight. Just got to really hope that the LED control module and the xenon ballasts are all still working, and it is in fact the headlights that is defective. So let me just turn off the ignition. Now we've done that. So I've got the bumper off here, and actually it's in pretty good condition, apart from it's a bit unclipped at the bottom here, but I'm pretty sure they'll actually just clip back in. The only real damage is the black grille here, look where it's broken. Now this is actually bonded to the bumper, so I'm sure you can replace it, but in theory it's not a changeable part. But all the lugs up here and this side are all intact. So the only real issue by the grille is that this bumper is just a completely different colour. I've been searching online to try and find a complete bumper in the right colour, so all I've got to do is buy it and fit it, because otherwise at this rate I've got to buy a new grille and then pay for it to be completely repainted. So you're looking at sort of 350 quid minimum to have that done. So I'm trying to find a complete bumper in the correct colour for obviously less than that to just completely replace it with. So yeah, we'll see how we go. But for now, I think I can refit this bumper. If I can't find one in time, I'll refit this bumper and I'll start driving it as is, because it looks 95% fine. So I'm gonna have to leave it there in today's video, guys. I mean, I did say at the beginning of the video, I hope to get a lot done, and I did try. We are pretty much halfway. I suppose the good news is that everything is in motion to fix all the problems. Like, we shouldn't really encounter any more problems. Obviously, I drove the car, so I know the engine's fine. So everything I'm doing is a work in progress to get the car actually roadworthy. Now, I've just got a quick breakdown of the things that I've bought so far, so we can see where we're at cost-wise. So the car was £2,800. And so far, I've actually bought a driver's door, which I do actually have, but can't fit because obviously it's stuck on the ramp. So it is actually immaculate, in the right colour, so that would just be a straight swap, and that was £200. Gearbox was £350. Again, that's to rectify that problem. I've actually bought a DPF spray, so I'm not going to remove the DPF yet, if I don't have to, because it's an absolute pain in the arse job. So what I've done is I've bought this spray here, look, just got it off eBay. It's a DPF spray, so I've got to take out one of the sensors at the top of the DPF, spray it all in, and then just before we go for a drive, and then we're going to go for a test drive. Hopefully that can burn some of the rubbish off, and then we'll try and do a forced regeneration. So I'm going to try and do that before I have to worry about taking the DPF off. And then I've got a headlight, which I've just bought, including the brackets, which is £193, which include the brackets. That oil seal, £170. And an oil and filter, which we're going to do anyway, which is £60, which takes our current spend up to £1,003. So at the minute, with the cost of the car, we're at just over £3,800, which is still well under the value of the car. And once all those things have been done, it should just be a case of bodywork. And that bodywork is potentially painting this front bumper and buying a new grille, which will be circa £350. Repairing the rear bumper, circa £200. And also the sill on the just below the driver's door, again, circa 300 quid. So we're going to be roughly looking at maybe £1,000 just under to repair the bodywork, which will hopefully leave us still at under £5,000 for the car, which is still well under what it's worth. So fingers crossed it all goes to plan. I forgot to say as well, I am borrowing a tool to fit the oil shaft seal, but unfortunately I won't be able to get it until after the weekend, which is why I can't really do any more for this video. So as always, guys, thank you very much. I hope you did enjoy this video. Sorry it's more of just a strip down rather than actually fix anything, but these things happen and there's nothing I can really do about it. So thank you very much for watching, guys. If you haven't already, please do subscribe, and also follow me on Instagram at saving_salvage. And I'll see you in the next one, where hopefully we'll get a lot more done.